The sun had already dipped below the horizon when I arrived at the property. The pictures on the Airbnb listing had done it justice. A quaint two-story house with faded white paint and an inviting porch. The slightly overgrown garden hinted at the place being well-lived. A soft glow from the windows promised warmth and comfort within. After a long journey, I was eager to settle in. I found the key in a small lockbox by the door, just as the host had described. It felt like a simple transaction, with no need for human interaction in our age of technology. The house was immaculate inside a modern kitchen to my left, a cozy living room straight ahead, and a wooden staircase leading to the bedrooms above. There was a note on the dining table written in neat cursive, "Make yourself at home. Enjoy your stay." I remember smiling, appreciating the touch of humanity in such a digital transaction. That first night, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in months, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the sheets in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Sleep came quickly, but it was a noise downstairs that jolted me awake. A soft thud, like a book falling off a shelf. My heart raced, but I assured myself it was just the usual noises of an old house. Still, to quell my nerves, I tiptoed to the door, listening intently. There it was again, whispers. I wasn't alone. Holding my breath, I peered through the tiny gap in the door. The dim light from the street lamps outside painted ghostly shadows on the walls, but the sight that met my eyes was more terrifying than any ghost. Two figures, a man and a woman, were quietly moving in the living room below. They acted like they belonged, speaking in hushed voices and laughing softly. Panic set in. The reasonable part of my mind tried to reason. Perhaps they were friends of the host. Maybe they had a right to be here, but something felt off. Their movements seemed too intimate, too familiar. They weren't guests, they were at home. I retreated from the door, carefully locking it behind me. My phone. I needed to call the police. But as I fumbled in the dark, a chilling realization hit me. I'd left it charging downstairs. My only hope was the landline in the hallway. But that meant confronting the intruders. But then, another thought. What if they weren't intruders at all? I quickly turned on the room's lamp and booted up my laptop, logging into the Airbnb website and scrolling through my bookings. My heart dropped. The profile of the host, the messages we'd exchanged, the pictures of the house they were gone. The listing was a mirage. I was in a stranger's home. Every creak of the wood, every whisper I heard amplified my terror. Were they burglars or something worse? Minutes felt like hours. I was paralyzed, debating my next move. I decided to attempt an escape. With bated breath, I opened the window, realizing it was a straight drop to the hard ground below. My only chance was to climb onto the roof and find a safer way down. As I clambered out, the cold air bit into my skin. I thought I had gone unnoticed. That was until a light turned on in the room adjacent to mine. The curtains shifted, and a pair of eyes locked onto mine. The woman's scream pierced the night, a chilling, high-pitched note of surprise and horror. The man's voice boomed. "Who are you? What are you doing in our house?" My heart hammered in my chest, my panic overriding every rational thought. The roof tiles were slippery underfoot, but fear propelled me forward, searching desperately for an escape route. Suddenly, a voice from the street below called out, "Hey, is everything okay up there?" I peered over the edge. A police car sat outside, its blue lights painting the scene in stark, contrasting shades. Relief washed over me, but my ordeal wasn't over. The couple was now on the roof too, approaching me with anger and confusion. I screamed, begging the police to help me understand the terrible mistake I'd made. The officers quickly intervened, diffusing the situation. It took hours to unravel the confusion, to understand that I was as much a victim as the bewildered couple whose home I'd unknowingly invaded. It turned out that I wasn't the first to fall for this scam. A fake host using pictures of homes from real estate listings, luring unsuspecting travelers and then disappearing into the digital abyss. The real homeowners had been away for the weekend and had no idea their home was listed online. As dawn broke, I realized how fragile our trust in technology is, and how easily the lines between reality and the digital realm can blur, casting shadows where we least expect. With the police meditating, the couple's anger transformed into sympathy. They too were horrified by the audacity of the scam. They had heard of online fraud, sure, but to have their very home used as bait was a violation they hadn't imagined. To help with their investigation, the police requested surveillance footage from nearby homes, and it was during this process that another layer of horror unveiled itself. The fake host had been watching. A camera discreetly positioned across the street captured me as I approached and entered the house. The feed was live streamed to an unknown audience who reveled in my unwitting invasion and the ensuing drama. As the morning light grew stronger, we stood together in shared disbelief, victims of a digital world that both connected and deceived us. This harrowing night intertwined our paths, reminding us that behind the screens and algorithms, there are real homes, real lives, and real consequences. While I may never truly shed the weight of that night's terror, it now serves as a beacon of caution in my digital journey, urging me to seek authenticity and truth in an increasingly virtual world. I've always been an ardent fan of Airbnb. It's not just about affordability, but the unique experiences each property offers. When I stumbled upon a listing for a rustic cabin nestled deep in the woods, I was instantly sold. The reviews were stellar, with previous guests raving about the tranquility and beauty of the location. There was one peculiar review, though, a one-liner that read, "The nights are unforgettable." I smirked, thinking it referred to the starry skies or nocturnal sounds of the forest. Upon arrival, the cabin looked exactly like the pictures, quaint, surrounded by towering trees, with a porch overlooking a serene pond. My plan was simple: unwind for the week, far from the hustle of city life. The first day went splendidly, but that night, things took a strange turn. I woke to find myself on the porch, the early morning dew soaking through my pajamas, my blanket draped over me. Confused, I tried recalling how I got there, but drew a blank. The following evening, before bed, I double-checked the locks. Yet history repeated itself. I woke up outside again, but this time, closer to the woods. Disturbed, I decided to scour the Airbnb reviews again, looking for any clues. Multiple guests mentioned how restful their sleep was, but a few reported odd dreams of wandering the woods. I decided to set up my phone to record video, hoping to catch any odd activity during the night. The next morning, the footage showed me at around 2 a.m. unlocking the door and walking out in an almost trance-like state, being drawn towards the woods. What was pulling me? Determined to find answers, I resolved to stay awake the next night. As hours ticked by, around the same time, a soft, melodic hum wafted from the woods. It had an uncanny pull. I found myself at the edge of the woods, almost being drawn in. Something on the ground caught my eye, a small metallic object. Picking it up, it turned out to be a locket inside, with a faded picture of the cabin and a note that read, "Stay out of the woods." Suddenly, everything became clear. This wasn't just about a cabin in the woods. It was about its proximity to something within those woods. The humming ceased, But the chilling realization hit me. Whatever resided in those woods had been luring guests for who knows how long. The weight of the locket felt significant in my hand. Its aged metal was cold to the touch. The urgency of the note was evident, but it posed more questions than answers. Who had left this locket, and why were they warning guests about the woods? Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, I decided to message the Airbnb host. I carefully drafted a message inquiring about any known history of the property or any incidents involving previous guests. Hours went by without a reply. The silence of the cabin felt more pronounced, the woods outside seeming to press closer with their dark canopies. The hum, which had stopped upon finding the locket, was absent, heightening my sense of dread. Finally, late in the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was the host. Their message was brief. Leave the cabin immediately. Do not spend another night. And whatever you do not enter the woods. The stark warning from the host left me unnerved. My instinct screamed at me to leave immediately. I hastily packed my belongings and rushed to my car, ready to put as much distance between myself and the cabin as possible. But as if fate was conspiring against me, the car wouldn't start. I tried multiple times, the engine sputtering and dying, refusing to come to life. Panic began to rise. The impending night seemed darker and more threatening than before. Trapped in my car, my breath began to fog up the windows. The silence of the surroundings was broken only by my increasingly frantic attempts to start the car. Just when I was on the brink of despair, a sudden knock on the car window nearly sent me out of my skin. I turned sharply to see a face peering in, momentarily obscured by the foggy window. Heart pounding, I wiped away the condensation to reveal the worried face of the Airbnb host. Unlocking the door, I was met with his anxious gaze. I had a bad feeling, he began, when I didn't see any activity in the cabin and then saw you here, struggling with the car. I had to come down. Relief washed over me. I've been trying to leave, but the car won't start, I explained, my voice shaky. The host looked around nervously. We need to leave this place now. He called for a tow truck and insisted on waiting with me. As we sat in his car, the hum from the woods, faint but undeniable, filled the night air. That sound, I began. He sighed deeply. A few months ago, a woman rented the cabin. She was much like you, looking for a quiet escape. One night, she ventured into the woods, drawn by that very hum. She never returned. Searches were conducted, but it was as if the woods swallowed her whole. My blood ran cold as the weight of my nocturnal wandering settled in. I had come perilously close to suffering the same fate. The woods are ancient, he continued. Some say they're alive, holding on to those who venture too deep. Ever since the woman's disappearance, odd things have been happening. Guests waking up outside, strange dreams, and always that hum. The tow truck finally arrived, breaking the spell of the night. As my car was hitched, the host handed me a note. I'm shutting down the Airbnb listing, but if you ever think of returning, remember this. The note was simple. Beware the woods lullaby. The drive away from the cabin, with the host leading the way, felt like an escape from a dark dream. The hum of the woods faded, but its memory lingered, a haunting reminder of the close call between the inexplicable and the unknown. The apartment was perfect, modern, spacious, and surprisingly affordable. The large bay windows let in generous sunlight, and I remember feeling a rush of satisfaction as I unpacked my belongings. On the first day, the first sign that something was amiss came that very night. As I prepared for bed, I made my usual routine of checking the doors and windows. The front door had a unique locking mechanism, a digital panel paired with a traditional key lock. Feeling secure, I finally turned in for the night. A strange dream jolted me awake. In the dream, I was trapped in a box, the walls slowly closing in, gasping for breath. I sat up, attributing the nightmare to the stress of the day. But as I tried to get out of bed, I found that I couldn't open my bedroom door. The handle turned, but it wouldn't budge. Thinking it might be jammed, I put my weight against it, but still nothing. Starting to panic, I checked my phone, intending to call for help, but it showed no signal. I attempted the windows, but they wouldn't open either, and the thick glass muted my screams. Hours I have seen to pass. I scoured every inch of the room for an escape or even a tool, but there was nothing. Every so often, I would throw myself against the door in desperation, but it remained unyielding. As daylight waned, a new terror took hold. The room's temperature began to drop rapidly. I could see my breath, and a layer of frost began to form on the windows. Despite bundling up in all the clothes I had, the cold bit into my bones. Determined to survive, I tore up the wooden floorboards, hoping to find some way out beneath, but all I found was solid concrete. Frustration and fear welled up inside me, tears streaming down my face as I realized the grim situation I was in. It was then that the whispers started, soft at first, indecipherable, growing louder and more insistent. They seemed to come from the walls, mocking my attempts to escape. "You can't leave," one voice sneered. "Stay with us," another implored. The voices were maddening. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to drown them out, but they persisted. The room seemed to grow smaller, the ceiling inching closer as if threatening to crush me. Just when I thought I would succumb to madness, a blinding light pierced through the darkness. The door was opening. Shielding my eyes, I could make out a figure. As my vision adjusted, I saw a man standing there, his expression one of shock and confusion. He stepped inside, his gaze darting around the room, taking in the upturned floorboards and my huddled form. "What happened here?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. I scrambled to my feet, stuttering. The door, it wouldn't open. The voices, the cold. The overwhelming relief of no longer being trapped made my knees weak, and I almost collapsed.
He quickly supported me, leading me out of the room.
The apartment beyond looked normal, basking in the glow of the setting sun. The contrast to the darkness and cold I'd experienced was jarring. "I'm the host," he explained, handing me a glass of water. "I came to check if everything was all right. I got some alerts from the security system about potential breaches, and when you didn't answer the calls or texts, I got worried." I took a deep sip, the cold water soothing my parched throat. I had no signal. The door locked by itself, and the windows, I couldn't open them. And the voices, my voice trailed off, wondering if he'd believe me. He looked uncomfortable for a moment, then sighed. "I was hoping this wouldn't happen again." "What do you mean, again?" I asked. He hesitated. "A few years back, another guest reported similar experiences, being locked in, hearing voices. I didn't believe her, but then it happened a couple more times. Different people, same story." My heart raced. "Why didn't you warn me?" He looked down, guilt evident on his face. "I thought it was a coincidence, or maybe they had conspired to trick me. But after what you've been through, I can't deny it any longer. There's something wrong with that room." We both turned to look at the bedroom door, now innocently ajar. It was hard to believe that beyond that threshold lay an inescapable trap filled with whispers of torment. "I need to find a way to fix this," he murmured, more to himself than to me. Determined never to spend another night in that apartment, I packed my essentials. The host didn't protest. He even offered a refund. The weight of guilt was evident in his eyes. Months have passed since that night, but the trauma lingers. Every time I hear a door click or feel a sudden drop in temperature, the memories rush back. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I swear I can hear faint whispers, a chilling reminder of the apartment and its haunted room.